after that, came back to Hawaii for a little while because my mom had some health problems. And then saw an opportunity to do some farming in Cambodia. And so I've been out there and, tried to look at different techniques. There are a lot of scientific papers on what works best, and, poured over a lot of different, people's experiences, trying to see, what sort of things I should do for my farm. And I came across, a lot of the natural farming techniques. That's kind of how I got started. And we're doing a lot of fruits on our farm: coconuts, rambutans, lime, guava, lychee, avocado, longan. And we were buying probably about I would say $7,000 to $8,000 worth of cow manure every year, because we were making about 300 tons of compost, because we wanted to really enhance the soil. So since that was getting pretty expensive, we decided that why not just make our own organic material, and that's how I wanted to get into pig farming. So here I am, and this is a little bit about the experience that I've had in pig farming. This might be a little hard to understand. Sort of the design that I imagine. It's a little different from obviously the Korean national farming house, because it doesn't have the open light and a lot of other different things to it. So this is sort of a mixture of the Cambodian and things that I saw in the Philippines that I wanted to implement as well. And I'll tell you all of my, the follies that I've had and things that I would adjust. I've made each room about 4.5 by 4.5 meters. So that's about, approximately 1.7 square meters per pig. Very tight. Cambodia, a lot of the farmers recommend 1.5 meters only per pig. And so, through my experience, I would actually change it. If I could do it all over again, I would have changed it to probably, I would say, between 2.2 to 2.3 square meters per pig, just to give them a little more space. Because, as they get bigger, a lot of the waste builds up a little quicker. And I'll tell you some of the follies that I ran into, so that'd be the adjustment I've made. So this is sort of under construction. Just really simple materials, bricks. You've got your basic metal roofing and concrete and some piping for the railings. So it's pretty basic. It's a little harder to see here. It's a little dark, but we've got the completed pig house, and then in the back is the big feed shed. These are our water towers that we're drawing water from our well. The middle one is going to supply the water for the pigs, and then the top one just is irrigation for a lot of our avocado, lime, and guava on the other side. And so, inside the house here, some of the things that I added, you can see on this side, it's actually a wallowing pen. In Cambodia, it's very hot. We've got a distinct dry season and a rainy season. So during the dry season, it can get over 100 degrees. And so there's been so many studies about how pig feed, their intake just drops off a cliff after you get over, I would say, probably about 27 degrees Celsius. As it gets to 27 and hotter, you have an inverse relationship with the intake for the pigs. So these actually start leveling off and then decreasing in weight. So controlling their temperature is extremely important. It's probably different in Hawaii, because you have a more temperate climate. but we have to keep them cool somehow. And so in the Philippines, they use a wallowing pen where the pigs can keep cool by jumping into the water, and they love it. But the problem is, I was worried about my water supply because since I'm pulling from a well, I was basically cleaning that wallowing pen every day because they poop and they pee in it. They tend to drink it. Probably not the healthiest thing, but that's what they do. And so I ended up actually just filling it in with sawdust and just extending the pen. And they didn't seem to have a problem with that. But before I knew fully what Master Cho recommends in terms of adding the logs and whatnot, I simply added about a meter of sawdust and rice hulls. So that was basically my base. And we've got the feed troughs here along the middle aisle, and basic wood interior. If I had to do it all over again, I would have done a steel structure. It's very windy, and so this is not the greatest for strong winds. Here's the interior of the pen. You can see the wallowing pen in the back, and then our water lines over here. What I found out was if you've got a very mineralized water, it really pays to have a filter that you can clean out all the time, because then your watering nozzle will sometimes get stuck, and so it'll drip and drip and drip. And over time, it can drip a lot, and especially if you're trying to keep your pen dry, you'll have a problem with, you'll have an anaerobic mess after a while, which I discovered. The pigs love the mud, but it gets harder for the bacteria to break things down. So that's one of the problems that I had early on. I didn't install a filtration system. As you know, the pigs love to dig, so it does keep them busy, just rooting around in all the sawdust and the rice hulls. And over time, it just turned out to be, it just gave us some incredible material to plant with. Bananas absolutely love, the pig manure, everything that we get composted after we spray it. So what we do is about once a week we'll go in with LAB and we'll spray down the pens so that we can get the microorganisms to break down the waste. We've got a lot of bananas on our farm. Any banana farmers here? Okay, good.
Small scale.
So, as you know, if you leave your stalks, your pseudostems in the field, it's a breeding ground for the banana weevils or the stem borers. So we take all the stalks out of the field and we'll grind them in this machine, and then we'll make a silage with it. For every 100 kilos, we'll add about 4 kilos of molasses, 1 kilo of salt, and then we'll also put in some LAD. And we'll mix it in with our feed, and the pigs love it. But I understand there was just a recent study about the breakdown of the nutrients. It's not hugely, doesn't have a ton of nutrition, but it's a way to use that waste and put it back into the field. So what we've tried to do is to make our own feed mix, to make things a little more economical. And fortunately, we have a brewery that's nearby. And so what we'll do is we'll use the spent brew waste. We'll mix that with rice bran, which is pretty plentiful in our area. And we'll mix that with the banana feed as well. Pigs love it. We have a lot of bananas that sometimes aren't marketable, and pigs will get a treat. So we've been told by our buyers that our pigs are very tasty. People love them. I think it's the banana. And one of the mistakes I made on the planning was that the feed trough was not wide enough to accommodate all of the pigs. I thought I had everything planned out, and it was simply not long enough to have a section for each pig. I thought it was big enough, but as they got bigger, it was apparently not big enough. So that's why I had to improvise, and I just threw it, I cut some tires in half and put them inside, and so they would have enough places so everyone could eat at the same time. But, as you know, it becomes a problem with the big ones pushing up the smaller ones. So that was one of the big mistakes that I had made early on. So this is some of the material that we got. As you can see, it's almost soil-like, but it's just a huge amount of great material that you can put back into your fields. And I don't really have to buy any more common art for our fields, which is great. So not only can you get your pigs, you also have this wonderful compost that's ready to put into the field. And this is just some lime along the left that we made recently. We're going to put into our new plantings. I'm not sure. Do we have any cattle people here, or people that grow cows? Okay, great. Or other ruminants. I'm not sure. Do you guys know about Styloxanthus? Anyone? Okay, good. I thought that'd be something different for you. Styloxanthus is a legume. It's a leguminous sort of bush that comes from Brazil, and it is a really fast grower. I'm not sure if Hawaii has marked it as a noxious weed or anything, because it does grow fast and it seeds and it spreads. But it's fantastic in order to produce a lot of organic material. I use it for a couple of reasons. One is, since it grows so quickly, it's a great material for your FPJ. And the second reason, I've got it here mixed in with some of our acacia to use up that space in between the acacia trees. You can use that to feed your ruminants. So if you've got goats, if you've got cows, they absolutely love this stuff. And it's very high in protein. For a plant, it's got about 17 to 20% protein, depending on, different factors on your soil and whatnot. But incredibly high in protein and grows very well. The only thing I'd caution you about is if you're going to grow it, mix it, I would intercrop it with grass. So seed it with maybe 50% your favorite grass. Because if the cows eat 100% of the legumes, they'll build up a little too much gas. So you may have to make something a little more grass with that. But it's great for both FPGA and also feed your cows. You can either broadcast it in your field, or you can cut and carry if you just have your cows under one place. It's just some pictures of our farm. But on this side we've got our lime and guava. Any lime growers or citrus growers here? No. Okay. How about guava? No.
By accident.
Okay. In Asia, there's a thing called HLD, flying long-fin disease, and it's killing all the citrus around the world, basically. It's deadly for citrus growers. But what they found is that the crop in Vietnam is not affected, and they were wondering why, and they figured out that in Vietnam they use a lot of guava, and they had intercropped it with their limes, and it was preventing the vector of the disease, which was one of these leaf hopping insects, because they don't like the guava. And so a lot of the Florida citrus farmers went over to study that and figured that out. So you might start seeing more white guava in the stores. I don't know. Some of our banana and papaya. Over here, we just planted about 350 rambutan trees this year, so we'll see how they grow. But we've got a bunch of about 400 orange trees that we just planted as well. So we're pretty new in getting all these trees into the ground, but hopefully we're conditioning our soil well enough to really make it work in the future. Any questions? That's pretty brief.
Hi. I have a question. Instead of hauling all of the manure out into the field, why not just put the pigs in the field?
Sorry?
Why not just put the pigs in the field?
Into the field? That would be great. I would love that. They root a lot. And so, we have a lot of new trees. And I'm just afraid that they'll just tear everything up. Plus, our fencing is not good enough around our whole perimeter. I got one of those farming stories that is just a nightmare. And in Cambodia, people like to burn their fields after harvest. It'd be great if they just plow that back into the soil, but they like to burn. And so this past dry season, there's a wildfire caused by that. Our neighbors grow grass, and the wildfire just spread and burned the south side of our perimeter and a bunch of our trees. And we had wood fencing with barbed wire. And so that burned down, and all of the water buffalo from all the neighboring villages knew that our land was the only one that had a major source of water. So they all come into our property and eat all of our banana trees and everything. And so, yeah, that was one of our setbacks. But because of that, sometimes things happen for a purpose. We decided to, plant hardier trees that take a little less labor than banana, and so we planted a lot of rambutan and whatnot. So sometimes it can turn a negative into a plus, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't let them graze because of the digging for one, and it'd be really hard, I think, for us to corral them around the property.
What if you hadn't had trees and you had a fencing system to condition the soil beforehand before planting? Would you probably make some adjustments?
I just don't know how their rooting would affect it.
What species?
Sorry.
What kind of pig did you use?
It's basically a mix of what is it? I've got to look. We've got it's bred. It's a hybrid, but we buy it from one of the big producers there that brought them in from England. So it's not a purely local. It's not a purely local pig.
The rooting can be handled pretty well with rings in their nose.
Oh,
And they won't root. When they're young, they're rings in their nose. Yeah.
okay. It's a good solution.
Still have that fences there.
Yeah. How would you do that?
Yeah, but my neighbor, they have an electric fence, and since then they don't have a pig problem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, wild pigs, because we have tons of wild pigs.
Right.
Even the HPP, Hawaiian Paradise Park,
Right.
they have a tons of wild pigs, and they came and eat all the sweet potato. If you have a growing crops, yeah, so but if you have an electric fence around, they won't come.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Let's see if I can get a big system there.
It's a solar, with the solar.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
easy to install and they're very inexpensive. About compared to regular fans, it will cost only 1/5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who's your market? Like, who do you sell the pigs to, and who do you sell your fruits to?
We're selling locally right now. So we've got a couple of different buyers that will come in and just take everything. Well, another one of my mistakes was we were bringing the pigs in about 20 at a time. I had thought that it would be easier to sell that way. But obviously it raises your risk of disease. One thing I also found out was that our guides were having a difficult time making all the ratios. Different ratios for different ages, and so that was sort of mixing them up as well. And I think it would have been a lot easier if we just had an all-in, all-out system where you bring 200 in at a time and 200 out. So I think we're gonna change that around.
How many people work on your farm, and how big is it?
It's over 100 hectares, so we've got about 25 to 30 people depending on the season. A lot of times, the people have to go back and do their own farms also. We're in one of the poorest parts of the world, basically. So it's good to provide jobs down there. Now a lot of our guys have their own motorbikes and stuff like that. So it's good. It's good to see.
And then after you put your rice hull and the sawdust, how long it will take to clean them out?
To take everything out?
Yeah.
Oh. It's just a matter of digging it all out.
No, I mean how long it will last in the pan.
Oh, in the pan?
Yeah, so in the big pan,
Right.
you have a fresh mature in, and then it has to break down by pig. So that period, how long you take 3 months or 4 months, you have to change to new mature right after you get dirty.
We did changing it.
No?
No.
You keep adding?
We just keep adding.
Oh.
And spray LAB every week.
So you're using that pig bedding waste as supplements on your farm now?
Yes.
And how often do you take it out of the pig
And how much?
pens? And how much at a time?
Yeah.
How often do you take it out of the pig pen, and how much at a time?
We're just taking it out at the end.
So you just empty the whole pig pen all the way
Yeah,
out?
because all we do is we add in, we're adding in rice hulls.
After you sell the pigs, then you
Then you take out.
Correct.
You're starting
So
already.
we add rice hulls, every week when we spray LAD. We build up a lot of material.
So how often do you have to add? Once a month?
Rice
or-
hulls?
Yeah, rice hulls.
We add every week.
Every week?
How long before you sell the pig?
About 6 months. About 6 months.
They gain about a pound a day?
Let's see. It depends on the time, and we weren't that great with record taking because of the fact that we were changing ratios, so it could be a lot more precise.
And you got up to market rate?
Yes. So it took about 6 months to get so. Well, that was it. Little short summary of what I'm doing there. Yeah, that's thank you in Cambodia.
So could you put up that first thing again with your contact info?
Sorry with the.
You had your contact info on the first slide, I think?
Sure.